After what happened in Lod, my family left Ramla. They moved to a small city nearby called Deir Amar. We left everything, our farms, houses, our businesses. One of my brothers refused to go. He said he would rather sleep under the stars, under the trees. And he took our grandmother and 2 others and went back to Ramla by chariot. On their way, they passed through Lod and found out there was a massacre at Damashmask. The Israeli 89th Commando Battalion, led by Moshe Dayan, occupied Lod. Several hundred civilians were killed by Israeli troops, including 80 machine-gunned inside Damashmask. My brother was shot in his leg and his head. Someone saw his jacket beside a dead body and thought it was my brother. We went back, sadly, to Deir Amar and mourned his death. Then we heard rumors, and my grandfather went secretly to Ramla to look for him. He discovered that my brother was still alive in Ramla. That day, we had a party. We were so happy.
The population of Israel-Palestine is divided about half and half, Jews and Palestinians. Yet through most of my life, would you believe I did not have one Palestinian friend, acquaintance, or neighbor? The Palestinians were on the dark side of the moon. I lived in Jerusalem, where 40% are Palestinians. They are residents, not citizens. I saw Palestinians cleaning the streets, planting flowers to beautify my city, and washing dishes in restaurants. But I really did not see them. A deep fear has been instilled in our veins. There is no need for formal segregation in Israel. It is implied perfectly by this fear. 2 completely separate entities. This is a perfect way to dehumanize the other. They become demons, and you keep out of their space. Do you know that in Jerusalem city maps, Palestinian neighborhoods are blank, as if they don't exist?
Why? Why was the tiny charm of the map of Palestine such a major transgression? Why was the response to it so uncompromising? Why were we made to suffer? Well, it's simple. It wasn't just a gold map. It was all that it represented. My mother, an ordinary Palestinian who had been dispossessed and living in exile for 15 years at that point, had stubbornly held on to her connection to her homeland. Not only that, she had successfully passed on her passion to return home to her children. And if that is the case, if Palestinians generation after generation are going to remember their past and demand recognition of their identity, well then how could Israel go about its business of denying the existence of Palestine? How could they create a Jewish state for only Jewish people on Palestinian land? How would Israel erase its legacy of colonialism and expulsion if those which it had colonized continued to resist and those which it had expelled continued to return?
I remember my life in the refugee camps. The UN gave all the students iron cups that we hung on our waists like prisoners. Each day we drank British milk and fish oil, and they sprayed us with DDT, a substance that is internationally prohibited for the severe damage caused to the nervous system. One day the UN gave all the kids in my school red shoes, except for me, because my feet were too big. So I kept going to school without shoes. My family moved from camp to camp in the Gaza Strip until we landed up in Jordan. I kept attending school in each city we moved to with UN camps. I always registered myself as my parents were sick and were too busy surviving. My brother, who was 14, decided to work construction in Jordan to bring us money. And once, he and a friend stopped in a cave to take a nap, and they left their donkeys outside. The Zionists saw the animals from a helicopter, and they shot the animals and my brother's friends. It was written in the Gaza news that my brother was killed. For a week, we were devastated, but it turned out that by some miracle, he escaped, although his friends were killed. More than genes are inherited to offspring. The world can fabricate a lie, and it gets inherited forever. The world is scared of the truth, and Arabs are hopeless.
I often think to myself, how would we feel here in America if suddenly an international body declared that Brooklyn was now a homeland for persecuted Armenians, let's say, and that we Brooklynites would have to leave our homes and give our jobs and livelihoods to the thousands of Armenians who have survived their Holocaust? And then we Brooklynites become residents, not citizens, and have to go through checkpoints to go to work, or we can't go to Coney Island to the beach because it's only for the newcomers. I think there would be strong resistance to this, and everyone would understand this resistance as justified. That is what's happening in Israel.
It has been hard work to examine my own mind. Many questions leave me wondering how I could have not thought about them. My solid identity has been shaken and then broken. I have been an eyewitness to the systematic oppression, humiliation, racism, cruelty, and hatred by my people towards the others.
Teta Abed, my grandmother, suffered from dementia in her old age. We didn't realize it for a long time because she was so good at hiding the fact that she was losing her memory. One night, sitting in Khalti Soha's house in Ramallah, my grandmother got up suddenly and said, it's late, I have to go upstairs. My father will be so upset if I don't go home. I have to go home. My grandmother's mind had taken her back to her childhood home. She was born in Safad, and she died in Safad. If only in her mind, she'd forgotten Safad was now out of her reach. It had been colonized by Israel in 1948. All she could remember is Palestine. None of us have forgotten. And although the Nakba started 70 years ago and continues to this day, we are still there. Palestine still exists. It is not an eradicated memory.